I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
We are live. We are live.
On the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now. 559-899-1550.
And welcome to Alan Autry. No retweet. Retweet? I say that about every other show. We tweet. Like who used to say that? Was that Elmer Fudd with?
No, that's a little yellow birdie.
Yeah, we tweet. You ask
Sweetie pie.
Anyway, it's great. It's Alan Autry, no retreat. I'm old Alan Autry, if you haven't figured that by now. And it's just great to have you with us here, broadcasting live here on this cold Wednesday in Central California in Fresno. My goodness, it's going to be 29 degrees tonight. The cold snap is snapping through here. But it's kind of nice because we know that summer's coming, right, Larry Powell?
Absolutely. And, get a little snow in those mountains so we can drink some water during the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now we'll get into that. You start talking about water. I still have PTSD from my 8 years as mayor fighting for water,
And you did a lot of work with 15 other mayors in the county, even though your city of Fresno really working, and then extended past into the San Joaquin Valley because it's a valley issue.
Yes, and it's amazing how that many 15 mayors can collaborate and work so hard and do absolutely nothing. Get absolutely nothing done in the water.
Well,
and you run into the big old barricade, the big old monster called the state and the federal government.
Yeah.
They bring out the big clubs. Then half of those mayors run like scalded dogs because they don't want to cross.
And the Delta.
But I think it's going to happen. I think there's a return to common sense. And, I think all this crazy stuff going on, Larry, we always go back to the Bible. And I think folks that are listening out there that are of a Christian faith, that's the drum we march to. We always filter things through the biblical prism, if you will, or we try to be obedient to. And there's where, at least personally, and I know we've talked, and most Christians, we find most of our comfort because we know how the story ends. We know it'll get worse before it gets better. But when it gets better, it's all said and done. This isn't our home. We make it as much a home as we can.
This world is not my home. I'm just a passing through.
Exactly.
My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue.
Absolutely. And, we do our best to make the world, do our little part to make the world as best as it can be. But we're going to have the stuff going on. We're going to have the pandemics. You're going to have the wars. You're going to have these sort of things happen. And if we get caught up in the moment and the mindset of this is as good as it gets, it can get depressing.
Oh, absolutely. But you know what? We're told in the Bible to keep your mind on the things that are good and lovely and of good report. And when you do that, you can get through stuff that you normally wouldn't be able to. So I just encourage people, think of the good things. And a lot of folks here in America have a lot of good things going for them in spite of all the craziness around us.
Now, that's great. Now, after we've lifted everybody up, let's bring them down. The Ukraine thing. What's your take on this, Larry? I'm not
it's hard.
Well, the thing is, you can't, the way we were brought up, there was, it was in a world where diplomacy and talk, because after World War II,
right,
there was a determination. Let's don't ever go there again.
Route. Yeah.
So, and the Great Depression and things happened, and we knew that this collective, that we're all in this together thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk our problems out. Not that there wasn't some bad things there, but let's work together. So you had a big old Southern Texan, LBJ, working with Martin Luther King, an inner city black preacher, for some civil rights legislation that changed America. And now you would have, hey, you don't work with that big white Texan because he's white. He's evil from birth. He's an oppressor. Don't even talk to them. And you have people out there telling Leah B.J., look, this far right, left radical guy out there stirring up everybody. Don't talk with them.
Yep.
And so, you know, when I start saying things like we have to understand Vladimir Putin's position, because you're not seeing real big pushback in his own country. There's a lot of good Russian people in that country that are that didn't work for the KGB, Larry,
right,
for 20 years,
right,
that don't have his background, that do say, look, we are concerned when you have NATO forces, which was created to basically attack us at any moment,
right,
to keep us in check, to really militarily look at us getting, you know, on our border.
Right.
Not that I wouldn't support at the end of the day, boots on the ground in Ukraine. I don't support it now. I don't know enough. What is Ukraine? What I keep being told we're a democracy. Mm-hmm. Then I hear that they jailed their opponents. Zelensky's jailed his opponents, shut down portions of the media. Sounds like Canada, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know, maybe they have some truckers there.
So it's a long way of setting this question up. But I get criticized for saying, as soon as you say something good about, I said, I'm not just saying something good about Putin. Mm-hmm. I'm recognizing him as a human being and the leader of a nuclear power,
right,
that says, here's why I'm doing what we're doing. And yet you have Biden refusing to meet with him in Geneva. Putin says, I'll meet with you. Biden says, no, I won't. And then you have Ned Price coming up saying, so we don't believe it's appropriate since he's made the move into the Ukraine. And we do not think, since that's happened, we should do that. Then the very next question is, were you planning on shutting down the embassy? He says, well, no, we believe at times like this, you should keep the diplomatic lines of communication open.
Well, there's some lessons from World War II and Hitler here. If you remember, appeasement did not work, and the British tried it. And Hitler basically said, I'm going in anyway and taking over those countries in Eastern Europe, which he did. Appeasement doesn't work. But at the same time, you got to understand, Putin does not have a negative in this. I mean, there's no downside for him. The U.S. isn't going to go after him.
No way.
You've got oil going from Russia to Germany. So Europe is divided because Germany is getting most of their oil, and much of Europe is getting oil from Russia. So, you know, there's no win for us. There's no loss for Putin.
Yeah. And you wish you could set this administration down and say, look, you guys are the leaders, but please stop thinking that you're the intellectually anointed, that you're overseeing a country full of idiots.
Yeah.
When you come out there and tell us that all of Europe is united behind Joe Biden and every decision he makes, do you know how stupid that sounds? How really insulting it is. Yeah. We have zero leverage. You do not have Europe united. Germany, you know what it sent to the Ukraine? You know what they've sent? 5,000 helmets. Not troops.
Unfilled helmets.
Helmets. That's how much they're behind Biden. We have 8,500 troops ready on high alert. How many does Germany have on high alert?
Yeah.
Zero. France is not going to do anything. France is the biggest communist stronghold in the free world. They're not doing anything. The old standby United Kingdom, they're sitting back there going, you know, we just went through the COVID craziness. Yeah. This is idiotic. We're going to have a little tea and crumpets for a while and set this one up. And, you know, but here's the point. I think, don't you think that Putin had this whole thing brilliantly worked out and won before he ever made the move into it was a stroke of genius. He met with Xi Jinping.
Yeah.
You know, he said, okay, you got
their alliance.
Right. And he says, Xi, you got my back on Ukraine, and I'll have your back on Taiwan. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Now look, when I go in, they're going to sanction me. Do you have my back? You know, Xi Jinping says, you got your back. We'll make up any economic hardship because we'll just wait out the West. Well, whatever they impose
like
on
you. There's no win for us.
Exactly.
No loss for him.
And then brilliantly, he calls the two regions, Donbass and Luksha, It's two countries. Sounds like two wild and crazy guys.
I guess so.
So like Steve Martin and Dan
Or
Aykroyd.
Steve Martin when you meet him.
Don Boggs and Luxa. Where you got these countries who declare their independence. Say, we're no longer the Ukraine.
Yep.
So the Russian says, we recognize you.
Yes.
So then they move in. They're not invading Ukraine.
No.
They're coming into two sovereign countries.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was a good move.
Oh,
But let
my
me tell
gosh.
you,
And then,
this was designed a year ago. This was designed as soon as he knew that Trump was not going to be in office. And so he's been waiting for a long time. Let me tell you why. It's the strategic value of Ukraine and the natural resources. It is one of the highest natural resourced countries around, and it's right on Russia's border. So there is no reason for them not to eventually take it, because it helps Russia with their natural resource issues. So it was going to happen. It was a matter of when's the most strategic time to do it. Well, it's when COVID is going crazy, when Biden is in office. There was not going to be any bite back that hurt. And your whole thing with China and providing economic support is there. I mean, there's no win for us. Why not talk?
Exactly. And, they can't. I see Biden on TV the other day, folks, and, he's trying to win the history game with them.
Yeah.
I'm holding my head going, Mr. President, please don't go there. We're presiding over the greatest country in the world. I'm so proud to be an American, thankful to be an American. But we're less than 300 years old. And you're going to talk history with Russia.
Yeah.
And there was a time, Putin's position is that Ukraine, what is Ukraine? It's part of Russia. He makes a historical case for that. And everybody's talking about all this rambling deal, and they disagree politically. But you look at it, he does have a point. You have to say, okay, that's your perspective. It has some validity. Because you start playing that game and say you don't have validity, Putin's going to turn around and go, you know what? How did you guys get California, Arizona and New Mexico? Wasn't that part of Mexico and Texas that you came in and took?
How about Louisiana Purchase? I mean,
well, yeah, exactly. we military, that was bought from France, I believe. But we were militarily, we just took that from Mexico. If Mexico came in and said, look, historically, that's our land that you come in and took. What do we say? Well, manifest, what do they call this? Manifest destiny got it for us. I'm just saying you don't win even the historical battle in that regard.
You have to stay on what's right and what's wrong.
Right.
And unfortunately, we waffle on right and wrong terms all the time now.
Right.
That's where we live. And when you go global on everything, then it's easy to waffle more. And that's what we're seeing is more and more waffling. And then you get pontification with no action. And so it sounds like you're going to do something when you absolutely have no plans to do anything.
And the thing is, he really has zero leverage.
No leverage at all.
These sanctions, he puts the first two, and there are things, again, you think, who's advising him? Again, it is policy constructed under the prism that all Americans are idiots.
Yeah.
The proletariat are idiots, and this anointed can say anything and do anything. They come out and said, the first thing we're going to sanction because of this incursion, maybe this minor incursion, we're going to sanction these two new countries, Donbas and Luksha. Well, how much are we sending to Dansha and Luksha right now? It's like saying, we're going to stop delivering the water from the Temperance Flat Dam to Mendota.
Yeah, and there's no dam.
There's no dam. By the way, folks, there's no Temperance Flats. A dam we've been trying to get built here in the Central Valley. And my analogy metaphor is you got nothing that you're sending to Donbas and Luksha.
You got nothing from.
So that's how you're going to punish Russia. And sometimes decisions not only don't work, it pushes you further back in terms of credibility.
Well, we've lost moral standing in the world, and that's because you can't make policy on the run. Policy has to be made before the crisis comes, and that's the problem here. Biden doesn't have policy. He's got an idea of a globalization but there's no policy, and so when you don't have policy, there's no way you can make a good decision because you don't have a basis upon which to make it.
Right, exactly. Now, let me ask you this, Larry. The economic sanctions, aren't we in reality, when you actually look at it in a non-political, just analytically, at the world we're living in now, we are, like it or hate it, in a globalization in terms, it's a global market. All economies are tied together. What happens in America affects what happens in Japan. Something happens over in Ukraine affects our economy. It's a globalized market. People have warned us about, there's the upside of that and the downside of this. But when you say you're going to implement really strong sanctions on Russia, which Biden is doing, saying he's going to cut off Russian access to this bank and that bank, that used to work when America was the only true economic power.
And the dollar was the almighty dollar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And globalization hadn't come to full fruition. But now when you say you're going to sanction Russia and stop the pipeline, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is going to Germany goes, hold on. I know he's a dictator, but we need that natural gas.
Yeah.
Why? Because we've shut down every nuclear reactor that was providing energy. We've shut down every coal plant.
Yeah.
We have to have this or our economy is going to die. That's one of our allies. So how does he shut that down? And China is the wild card. Russia, the United States is no longer the dominant economic power. There's two.
Yep.
So how do these sanctions, economic sanctions, how do
it's
they?
an empty threat.
Yes.
Well, you saw what happens with the invasion of Ukraine, even with these two minor new countries, whatever they're going to call them. It has a
Donbass and Luxia.
it has a potential impact on our gas prices here in America.
Oh, it's already going up.
But it also gives an excuse to raise them, even if that wasn't the cause.
Exactly. And so, used to be America could put these sanctions and they really meant something. And we told our allies and folks who are not quite as friendly as well, if you go against us, you break this alliance, we're going to hurt you economically.
Yeah.
So this kind of mafioso thing that we as a country perpetrated on the world is now we're getting a taste of it ourselves. You're not going to keep this alliance together because the big elephant in the room is called Xi Jinping, and he's got $1 trillion of our debt. He's got this Belt and Road Initiative all over the world. And then you have Biden, who did the most idiotic thing when he first took office, takes those sanctions off the Nord Stream pipeline right after he stopped the Keystone pipeline.
Yeah.
We were shipping energy. We were energy independent.
Yep.
Now he's having to beg the guy you're putting sanctions on to sell you more oil. 13, and then you're having to go with your hat in hand over to Iran, Saudi Arabia. Please pump more oil while you're sanctioning. And I just don't see, and that's why I said I don't think this is going to go any further at this time than Russian backup troops. Putin's calling them a peacekeeping group there. But my prediction, it's not going to go back.
No.
Get used to it. He's not going to give back Crimea. He's not going to give back these two regions. Russia's going to have a foothold. And you didn't have since he took Crimea, it was 2014. He got 8 years now. Probably be another 9-10 years. Putin will be out. We don't know who will come back in, if they will continue with these expansionist policies. Yeah. Probably will. But don't you think it's a done deal? You're not.
The only
I don't think Zelensky's going to.
The only hope we have is that affluent Russians who have international commerce can put some pressure on, because one way you can get to Russia a little bit is through their international commerce.
International commerce is only going to go as far as communist China allows them.
No, exactly. So it's really tough.
Well, that's why they had that little that little twosome there.
Yep.
And they came out of it, Russia and China, with saying we are closer now than we've ever been. Now, I'm going to make pure conjecture here, but I believe it with all my heart it to be true. What China wants from Russia, ultimately, because they are like 50 years ahead of us. China knows better than anyone that control of the world is going to come from space. It's going to come from communications. Who can occupy space first? Who can militarize space?
Or disturb
First.
communications from space.
That's why Russia, when they blew up that satellite, wanted to show China, this is how far we're ahead of the United States.
Yeah.
And you got to hand it. The Russian space program is the closest thing to the United States. Xi Jinping wants access to that. Right now, the space station up there is Russia and the United States. Mm-hmm. You can bet your bottom dollar, folks, that came out of that agreement, you're going to see an announcement not too long from now, Russia and Chinese with a joint space venture in terms of a space station. And that's what Xi Jinping, and that is a dangerous, dangerous alliance.
They'll have a Panda Express lunch menu
with a little caviar and vodka to wash it down with. All right, we got to go pay some bills here. Jose, let's go to break. And when we come back, I want to talk about this thing in Canada with the Ayatollah Trudeau. Got a little ring to it, doesn't it?
It does.
My goodness, this guy is he's gone out there, man. He's enjoying that power. He's loving that power there he's got. All right, folks. Well, the Canadians put up with it. Canadian people, I don't know. They might be pushing back here. This is Alan Autry, No Retreat with Larry Powell. We'll be right back.
We gon' celebrate your party with you.
You see the Erdogan over there in Turkey said they had to think, said a long time to think how they're going to do this because they're not going to go against Russia, and they're in part of NATO. So they said, we don't recognize what's happening. And you're saying, well, wait a minute, your support was no, we don't.
Aren't there three monkeys?
We don't
kind of.
So, but it's probably exactly the only middle ground. This guy's a piece of work too, Erdogan. He didn't know he wants to be a dictator or Martin Luther King. I think he's just one of the others. But we don't recognize means we don't, didn't say we are against it or we're for it. We don't even see it. It's not happening. We're over here doing something else.
Get those blinders.
Yeah. It's getting close,
Yeah.
By month. I just don't. I think he's gonna.
Hey, and you were talking also about the space. The reason why Russia has so much advanced technology, I guess, with the space thing, is
They're
because
smart.
no, it's because the U.S. depended on Russia to send astronauts to the International Space Station. It was until Elon Musk was, done with his space program and was able to launch astronauts from the U.S., that they stopped using the Russians to send astronauts.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but all this time since the 80s, 70s,
It's been mostly the Russians.
the Russians have been sending U.S.
I tell you,
personnel.
Xi Jinping wants that technology. He wants that partnership so bad. That literally is the scary thing. Is that collaboration?
Yep.
Two dictatorial powers partnering up. Imagine, Hitler, Mussolini, Emperor Japan together and going up into space and control, because you control the high ground. You have the ability to put out communication satellites, attack from outer space. Oh gosh, What a world.
10 seconds.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now, 559-899-1550.
And welcome back to Alan Autry No Retreat. Before we get to the Canadian trucker situation in Canada, Laura Fisher, who we just love here on the show, just delivered a message through Jose here and gave us this little tidbit of information. And when it comes from Laura, I know a lot of research has gone into it. It's not just a knee-jerk thought, and she'll let you know. She says, hey, this is just my opinion based on this, or this is what I found out based on my research. But apparently the sanctions that Biden and Obama were a part of during the 2014 Crimean situation, where Putin went in, chopped off Crimea, took it at his own, gobbled it up, and, Biden and Obama just went apoplectic. They were just, so they sanctioned, I guess, 3 oligarchs that were behind that. Well, apparently, in 2022, what's that, 8 years later, if my math is correct, those oligarchs are yet to be sanctioned. And when you also look at Hunter Biden being on the board of Burisma, you have this, a very crooked, corrupt board, and they knew the background of Hunter Biden. It's something that just every way you look at it, and that's why I took the stand. I don't want any of our troops, even in phase 1 of 100 phases, that may send them there. I'm saying, well, we're just going to 8,500. Larry, we went through Vietnam. We know how Vietnam started, exactly like this.
Very similar.
Yeah, very similar. In fact, there was a treaty called CETA, I believe, Southeast Asia Treaty Alliance, that's the thing you got to watch out for with these alliances. NATO sounds great, fine, except when you get iffy countries coming there saying we're being attacked, this and that, and then you all are required to go in and help, and then everybody doesn't go in and help, and you end up having this tragic war called Vietnam. And it's eerily similar the way this is starting out. But it's just something to watch. Ukraine, they say, is a democracy. They jailed, Zelensky just jailed one of his critics in the media. They have opponents are cracked, they go after them, they silence them. Again, sounds like a lot like Canada. But it's just something I cannot, and I throw it apart for some of my more conservative brethren who want to just go there. Lindsey Graham and those folks want to just go over there right now. Hawks, let's fly all the Hawks over there and let's just escalate this thing. And I just think it's very, very, very dangerous. And I'd like to end on this before no one get your thoughts on the Canadian. All these folks on the left and those in the middle, and even some conservatives who say that climate change is the number one existential threat to not only America but mankind, meaning it threatens our very existence. Now, that may be true that it's an existential threat, but you're talking about, by every analysis, if things are left the way they are, 50, 100, 150 years before we start seeing these effects that could begin to catastrophically affect the world in terms of rising sea levels and crops not being able to be grown and all the devastation and life as we know it going away. The thing is, you have a situation when you have nuclear powers getting ready to face off, the real possibility that within 1/10 of a second, how long it takes to push that button, you got to have nuclear weapons launched, and you have devastation to the climate, a nuclear winter that this planet will never recover from. And I would ask you, take on the denuclearization of the world. Start with preventing Iran from getting them. Start with looking at that thing in Pakistan, where chaos and craziness have never been so close to nuclear weapons as they are in Pakistan. This crazy nonsense about starting a war, playing the tough guy, while, when you think about the effects of if that happens, it's just devastating. So that nuclear weapons has been, always will be at this point, and should be the focus of the climate, folks. Hey, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. Marshal all of those voices, all of this media, corporate heads out there. I don't care how woke you are. Wake up and see what's happening. Put all of your influence behind disarmament to a certain level, that if craziness hit and the unthinkable happened, that we'd have a chance for this planet to have a small chance to survive. Right now, there's so many out there, we have none. We got enough to destroy the world, Larry. They say 100, 200 times over with the amount of nuclear weapons that are out there. You have a time where we go to Canada, your thought on what I just rambled on about?
Yeah, cooler heads have to prevail. You have to get away from the pride factor in leadership. And that's the hard part for a Biden who is under such attack right now from even his own party, that he's creating an issue that he can quote unquote win on. And I don't know that he can. We've talked about that, but pride comes before the fall, and he's got pride way out there. He's got his son way out there. There's just so much connection and corruption out there that his pontification, his bravado is the only thing he sees as being able to save his presidency. So it's one of those, quote unquote, from his point of view, a unique opportunity to shift all of the craziness of COVID, of finances, of the economy, of inflation, all of those things away from the focus on him to something else. And that turns out to be Ukraine.
And the problem is, it's not just him that falls.
Right.
When you fall, literally the whole world can fall, and especially when you have the nuclear weapons out there. And people say, oh, Autry, that would never happen. Nobody ever used them. We did. Look at Hiroshima. Now, the logic was we could lose over 100 million troops if we tried to invade Japan. It's the only way to stop. So I get all that. But you have a guy who shot himself in the head in a bunker. It's a crazy man over in Germany. And you got to tell yourself, if he had the nuclear weapon, he was a frog hair away from getting it. Would he have used that if he could have got a nuclear bomb? Dropped it on New York?
No doubt.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how fortunate, how blessed we are to have a world.
There's a great picture of a plane that they had developed to deliver a weapon to New York.
No kidding.
Yeah. So they were close to wanting to do something like that. Obviously, they didn't have nuclear weapons, but they wanted to destroy New York to get us out of the war, so.
And it was wasn't it their German scientists that we recruited that came up with the bomb?
Yep.
I think it was. And so that's how close they were to. The technology was in their own backyard.
Oh, very close.
We got fortunate enough to get them out of there and defect and come and work for us.
Yep.
And build the bomb first.
Yep.
It's just scary stuff. Hey, before you got a quote from AOC, who's quickly becoming the Yogi Berra of politics.
Yeah, she's not worried about truckers and stuff because I get my food from the grocery store. So, well, AOC, guess what? Your food comes from a trucker who delivers it to your grocery store.
My buddy Gil Cedillo, former state senator, we got to be good friends. He was a quarterback in high school. I was, a conservative guy. We worked together though, and really got some stuff done for his district in LA. And he helped get some things in Fresno. But I invited him down. I said, come see the valley. He'd never been here. Well, he said, drove through it, flew over it.
Yeah.
So he did. And they took him around. So I had some folks meet him, and he took him around the valley. And I hooked up with him about 3 hours into the tour down at the old downtown club. Mm-hmm. And I walked in. He had this blank look on his face. Like, how you doing? He goes, I'm doing good. Excuse me. I said, what's wrong? You got the lead? He goes, Alan, I got to apologize to you. Oh, yeah? For what? He goes, I never knew. Never knew what? I never knew where the cheese came from that I put on my pizza. We just got back from a dairy, touring a dairy. Seeing how important, what went into making cheese for my pizza. He goes, I love pizza. I said stuff. And then with Gil, he says, and he made an interesting point. I said, I hope you know how much of that grant to open up a little park in a crime-ridden neighborhood so kids would have a place to play helps me. How that's my cheese there. That means as much to me. And you start understanding.
Sure.
And how many, people on the different political persuasion would look at what Gil said. You're just throwing away money, these worthless social programs. And no, you get to know the individual and you say, okay, I never saw that.
Yeah.
I never realized. That's why you need water.
He wasn't a bad guy.
He's not.
No.
He, not at all. He was a Democrat.
And he's open.
A true Democrat.
Yeah. And a liberal as opposed to a woke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I'm noticing, why do we have in both parties, when you become kind of the lunatic fringe, you become like the radical outlier, you start getting these monikers with it. Like on the left, you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she's AOC.
Yes.
She's AOC. Then you have on the right, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is now MTG. That's how she's referred to, MTG. So you got MTG over here, who thinks that, well, understand conspiracy theorists. You got some good ideas. So does Ocasio-Cortez.
Well, you're A squared.
But it's just what? Huh?
You're A squared.
I'm what?
Alan Autry, A squared. A2.
My kids call me a square. No, they don't. Kids love me.
Well, my initials are LLP. So I'm the double LP for all of you who remember those long play records.
Okay.
So it's the double LP on KTED.
Yeah. You got a nice little an acronym there.
Yeah.
But, anyway, it's a responsibility of the Republican Party to deal with and keep your, what do I call them? These radical outliers out of, listen to their voice, that sort of thing. But you have to be the one. You can't let the tail wag the dog. You can't. You got to bring common sense back that was robbed from you. You got to take it back. You got to be able to discipline your own and say you've gone too far, and be able to.
Even Pelosi tried to do that with AOC,
and then fold.
Yeah.
She folded though.
Give on it.
She just folded like a bad hand of poker.
Well, she went and had some ice cream out of one of those freezers.
I guess, or got her hair done with no mask. I don't know, but you have to be able. Like I see all these senators and congressmen running from the crime bill.
Yeah.
When Kamala Harris turned to Joe Biden and said, you supported that we're against that busing. Well, he should have said, Joe Biden says, well, do you know that 80% of black Americans were against that busing? They didn't want their kid being bused hour and a half away to a white school. They wanted their school across the street to work.
And they wanted it to be as effective as the school.
They wanted the resources and the teachers and in that school, their neighborhood school to work.
And we have the Gaston School, middle school here, who is accomplishing that.
Yes.
Yes, it works.
Yeah, Gaston, I hate to say the worst to first thing, but you have, in terms of challenges, economic, in terms of, neighborhood violence that's going on, to have these, the achievement gap being closed at schools like that is a tremendous story. But you don't run and abandon those schools.
No.
You make them. But anyway, we're off on, let's talk about Canada. Hey? You want to talk some Canada? Hey, you hoser. You hoser, Larry Powell.
Je parle français bien et étudié français pour 7 ans.
You stepped in what?
I studied French for 7 years, and I realize now why.
You can say anything in French, and it sounds good.
Yeah, it does.
It really does. And you can say anything in German, and it sounds bad. You could say, a German could look into a little crib and see a baby and say in German, what a beautiful child. And it's, and then that's a beautiful child. And that French could say, I've never seen such an ugly infant in my life. And it would come out, and you'd think, if you didn't know, you'd think the languages. Where are we on it? Oh, we're in Canada.
And
Canada
the truckers.
So did you hear that that old Trudeau, Ayatollah Trudeau, wants to change the name of the House of Commons with his new powers to Little Caesars. That's going to be the new name of the House of Commons, and he is the King Caesar. All right, Larry. In all seriousness, the guy has gone in. Now he's taken economic actions against these truckers and anybody who sends a donation to these truckers. First of all, mind you, the Ambassador Bridge has been open.
Yeah,
it's been open for days and days. So he called out the dogs.
City's been cleared of the trucks.
I tell you, Bull Connor, otherwise known as Justin Trudeau, the dogs came out, and they kept them out. Water hoses and dogs going there, none of these truckers and he likes it. You can tell he has a personal disdain for these people.
Right.
Call them homophobic, Islamophobic. Where did he get on? You talk about false flag. Talking about a false flag way to start some. You got that one Confederate flag in there, which the truckers shouted out and told basically get out of here.
Yeah.
And he used that. That's a classic false flag way to start.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, do you think the Canadian people are going in the long run buy this and forget this?
I don't think they buy it because it's the first time in Canada's history that the president has used emergency powers, and he used them to close down the bank accounts of anybody they could identify in the trucker group. So they asked the police for names, and they pulled up the names of all those folks. They closed down their bank accounts. But the idea of the use of those emergency powers was in order to get them out of the cities, get the bridge cleared and all of that. That's been done. So they just recently removed those closed bank accounts. So now they have access to their accounts again, but it's because they couldn't even get bail. So if you had a 5,000 franc bail or, whatever they're using, if they're where they're at, if you have bail, you couldn't get money out of your bank account to bail yourself out. But then the Chief Justice, I believe it's like a Chief Justice, did an interesting thing. She said no bail, so they didn't need money because they wouldn't let them out. So now she said they're likely to be convicted and have a jail term, so they were going to deny bail to the truckers who were arrested. So the issue, once they filed an issue against Trudeau for closing bank accounts, was mute, because now there's no bail, so they don't need it. But they've undone the banks. The banks are open again for the folks who were identified. It's your classic hardcore, effort to control a population through something that I think is immoral, unethical, illegal, when nothing was being done that was a crime. I'm astonished. Excuse me. I played 1 year of football up in Canada, British Columbia, and got to know Canadian culture, at least that area, very well, and very independent people. You just didn't go around telling them what to do. A lot like America. America and Canada were so, I mean, this is the land of, Sergeant Preston, the Mounties. These were tough people. We love those stories.
Yes, and it was all around freedom and liberty.
Yes.
This is the country, this is the tough people. This is the country that gave us hockey. They didn't give us badminton.
No.
They didn't give us tetherball. They gave us hockey. They come out there and they got the teeth missing. They're tough. They're gritting, spitting out blood, and then they've turned into this country of little puppies, little subservient, obedient puppy dogs. They all went to, socialist puppy school. And came out because, he had a chance. The House of Commons had a chance to say, okay, you've gotten the powers for a while. They're off the Ambassador Bridge. And he asked for it to keep those powers in place. And the House of Commons,
agreed. The
majority of the elected officials, and you're not really seeing a huge backlash. So I ask you this. Are the Canadian people just forever lost in terms of just being a country that is going to continue to get more socialist, invite government bigger into their lives, and just be told what to do and be comfortable with that situation? Or you think something's going to brew because of this? Because the trucker movement kind of came out of nowhere. We didn't know that was brewing in the truckers. Could there be more of that brewing that we're just not seeing that could be coming up.
When you have a country with historically democratic ideals, pushback comes when you have dictatorial types of rules. So,
Like Poland.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So I think the Canadian people don't want that reputation that they are a woke country, because they're not. They have more in common with us than any country in the world. We go back and forth.
So I thought.
Yeah, really. And I just think that, they will awake. They will, I think, respond appropriately. And I think Trudeau loses the next election.
Do you?
Yeah, I think he loses.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if he won. I wouldn't be shocked if he lost, but I would be a little surprised. I think they've done a good job of demonizing people there. Those truckers.
You got to remember, he's a minority government right now, with a coalition.
And let me just toss this out. This is going to get me in a lot of trouble. But I just want to tell folks, it's a classic example or an illustration of what I've been talking about good cops, bad law enforcement, good law enforcement. And I've made this statement that I thought what happened to Mr. Floyd was abhorrent. It was murder. Derek Chauvin is exactly where he needs to be. But I also said the history of this guy was, if the victim, George Floyd, would have been white, that this bad cop would have done the same thing. He'd done it in the past. He's putting the knee on the white neck and black neck. And is one more egregious than the other? Is one murder worse than the other when the victims are both dead? I find it hard to wrap my heart around that. And I'm looking at this footage of the police, the Canadian police coming in with the truckers. They grab this elderly guy out of the truck. 4 of them throw him down. And then you see, plain as day, he's on the ground helpless. And this one white, they're all white, comes back with his knee and does this MMA knee slam into this guy. 4, 5 times, knee back, bam, slam knee into this guy. Wound up breaking some ribs. And my point being is bad white cops will abuse and in some cases kill white people just like they do black people. And if you see white on white in societies, they're not going to stop. Bad cops are not going to stop because of a color. And you can rest assured, as sad as it is, that over in predominantly black countries and countries in Africa, you have African police mistreating black citizenry. Black on black, white on white, Asian on Asian. You ever seen in China called Tiananmen Square? You see what they did to those kids? Asian on Asian. You see bad leaders, bad cops, it doesn't matter. And somehow, and I get it, when you have a history of slavery in our country, I get all of that. But let us not confine it to think that this bad behavior and this evilness is only with white against black, because it limits what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. It limits the reform that has to be done. Because if we think of it that way, that might just my thought on that when I saw that. I said people need, that may think that,
bad policing is bad policing, and it doesn't matter
evil is
who's
evil.
doing it and who they're doing it to. Bad policing is bad all the way around. And yet we have seen in America a huge turnaround on trying to do things appropriately and get the bad actors out.
And ways to go, but we're on the way. I'm with you. Because I've always said, and I believe this to be true, 100%. I know a lot of cops in my family. Nobody hates a dirty, violent cop more than a good cop.
Absolutely.
And the vast majority of them are good cop. They don't want to be next to him either.
No.
So, that's the good thing about this. Yes, that this George Floyd, this tragedy woke people up, and we have a long ways to go, but just don't buy in that white cops are just going out and perpetrating, bad white cops perpetrating their violence and anger and terrible stuff just on young black kids.
Yep.
It's everybody's in this together. Real quick on this Canadian thing. They're talking about the Canadian trucker thing. a kind of mirror image American trucker thing to Washington, D.C. I think it's absolutely horrible, crazy, stupid idea. Nothing good can come of it. You're going to come down there and shut down the Beltway. You want to lose a lot of support. Go ahead and do that. But I just see no political gain for the movement with that. What's your thought? I may be off on this, but
well, you got to remember,
you don't mimic. First of all, come up with something creative. Don't mimic somebody else.
What is it? We have about a 2-day supply of food in America without truckers.
Yeah,
maybe up to 4. I think I read some statistics on that. If you want to get a family who is not involved in apolitical mad at you, then close the grocery store. So you don't do things that affect the average person. All that does is create hate. It doesn't create solutions or support. You have to do things to the elected officials to create that change, not to the common person who's struggling anyway. And COVID has got a lot of folks out of work. Yeah. You close down their food supply and you've got an enemy for a long time.
And then you go there and you have some knucklehead that might be from Antifa. Who knows? I guarantee you they're going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
And they cause some incident, and then there you go.
You get painted back.
And all those folks that are saying everyone that went to Washington, D.C. on January 6th are insurrectionists. Not just the ones that went into the Capitol, which was a very few, and they should get what they deserve for doing that. The vast majority were protesting peacefully, making their voices heard,
right.
Trump said. And you go there, something else happens, you're going to play right in the hands of Lynn Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Nancy Pelosi saying, here they are, these white. Yep. It's just not a smart move.
No.
On any level. I don't see any gain from it.
Real quick, keep in mind that Trudeau's government got only 32% of the vote. So they were a minority government that put together a coalition in order to get the 170 seats that they needed to have the majority.
When is he up for election? You know that?
Well, they don't have a regular election cycle. You can call for elections just like in England, and stuff. So
they don't have a regular election?
Yeah. You want to, let's get a new prime minister.
Yeah. Really? That's what it is? So you can stay in there forever if you want to?
Just keep going.
I'll be darned. I did not know that. Larry Powell, we always learn something when you come on our show. We all come out of it better and brighter. Folks, thank you for tuning in. Can't thank you enough. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless America, and the good Lord willing, creek don't rise. We're going to have a chance to do it tomorrow on Thursday. Bye-bye now.
Who cares about the clouds if we're together?